Okay, welcome to the second podcast, the Kung Pao Kings Hockey, where we have in-depth discussions with wonderful and insightful, intelligent guests about hockey and sports in general. If there's anything that could be applied to that as well, of course, we always try to keep things interesting, and so. Uh, we have a very special guest today, and we're going to definitely get into some interesting topics. Uh, First of all, I'd like to talk about our synthetic ice legacy hockey development. We work on all the fundamental skills. We work on passing, shooting, stick handling. There's skating, and all these other things that we can work on. But also, we also do rentals. So you can rent the rink for birthday parties or anything like that. Rent the rink to just take some shots, have some fun, do things on your own and practice. Next, we've got Speed Plus, which is our skating treadmill, sponsored proudly by them as well, because we work on skating and working on your technique, power, stride, and all these other things. So hopefully you can come on by for a free trial. Do contact us about that, and we'll set you up. And that leads us right into our very special guest. I'm sure some of you have already seen or heard of him, because we have invited him before to talk with our parents twice at least. And he's one of my favorite coaches and mentor of mine ever since of being in the USA Hockey program from 2012 to 2015. And I would like to welcome Mr. Ty Newberry. So very enthused to have him back, and he also, being from the USA Hockey program, really instilled in me a lot of what I teach now, and hopefully through this discussion we can change a few minds and help a few parents guide their kids in the right direction. Mr. Ty Newberry, please introduce yourself a little bit and see your background. Let us know a little bit about yourself, and then we'll continue with the conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mike. I guess my bio's I've screwed up hockey players in the game of hockey for over 35 years now. So not only have I managed to do it here in the United States, but other countries have asked me to come along and assist them with some of their coaching education programs over the years. So just been a very fortunate individual who, as Ken Dryden had put it, extended adolescence this late into life, and continue to have my life be surrounded by a game. And I've been very, very lucky to do it, like I said, here in the United States, and it's taken me to visit a number of wonderful countries and people around the world. So very blessed to do it.
That's wonderful to hear that you've been able to go and travel around the world and meet people from all sorts of life. And hockey was the thing that the sport that helped you to do that. And I also feel the same way, having been able to travel to different places. It really does open your eyes to different experiences. One experience actually I had was lucky enough, I was coaching in Luxembourg. And that 1 year that I coached there, I noticed lots of similarities to Hong Kong, and how maybe more affluent parents were able to afford more affluent sports. And so hockey was one of those sports. And the attitudes were quite the same. You know, we have to train a lot more. But what I liked about the Luxembourg program was that it was only maybe one practice or two practices and a game or two games on the weekend, and that's it. They never overtrained. They never overdid it. Unlike here in Hong Kong, it's a little bit more, let's go to Shenzhen and practice another 3-4 hours on the weekend each day. Let's go to, Shanghai and do that, an extra 3-4 hours. When does it become too much, the training? Is there such a thing as overtraining or too much? That's the question.
Of course, and we see this just not in our sport, but all sports here in North America especially, and I don't think it's just a specific problem to our area, is that, we forget that development and training doesn't have to solely be on the ice, that you can learn to improve your stick handling or puck handling by playing ping pong or fly fishing, that, all the other activities and sports that kids participate in is transferable to the game of hockey. But the problem is a lot of parents, their brains don't see or understand that. And we've got a lot of, it's amazing to me, elite athletes here in the United States, Chipper Jones in baseball, and a lot of these other top Hall of Fame athletes who are saying, you need to stop. Like, slow down, take your kids on a vacation, get away from your sport. Like, it's too much. And when we have Hall of Fame athletes who don't do those things with their kids, why is it that everybody else feels they need to do it? And, it's the fear of being left behind. And I think we just need to do a better job of educating and training people that other sports activities or other activities in general can transfer to the game of hockey, and that we have to make going to the ice rink a treat for the kids. Make it a special occasion instead of it's our daily activity. It's what we have to do. It's a chore. It's a job. We don't need to work harder than everybody. We should be playing harder than everybody. Like, we forget this is a sport. We're supposed to play. Let's play hockey. Let's have fun. And a lot of times it's the adults who screw it up for the kids, like in a lot of things in life.
Well, I do agree with you. And I think that there's a lot of, when you were talking about like taking vacations or just like not doing so much of that sport and it becoming a chore. One thing that, some coaches like to emphasize is that it is supposed to be fun. And I know, like, I got a lot of like slack or a lot of like, pushback from parents when I say, oh, well, you're supposed to have fun. And they'll go, well, baby hockey's over. And I'm like, the kid's 7. Like, he's 7 years old. He's supposed to have fun. Like, I had fun when I was 7 and 8, as I remember. I would go out and kick a ball, or that was fun to me. But aren't they supposed to play games to have fun and not think about, oh, I'm supposed to pass it? Oh, like, how much is that actually, like, the fun part? How important is that actually to building, say, let's not say a professional athlete, but let's just say sport for life? How much is it that when kids have fun at younger ages, that it actually transfers to adult life, rather than, some stories I hear, like here in China, I don't know how it is in the US, but in China, like, a lot of kids quit hockey, like at 13, 12, and they just kind of give it up. And I don't know, is it just because it's not fun?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I think that, we've had old studies here in the US that I think it was last one I read, about 60% of kids quit hockey by the age of 12. At the age of 12 is kind of that age group. And I think there's a lot going on there. I think one is yes, it does become less fun. 2, it is, the kids realize maybe they're a B level player today. That doesn't mean they'll never get to A, but why be a B level player if I can go jump to a different sport and hopefully be an A level player instantly and not have to work to get to that level. And the other thing is obviously they're, at that age entering in puberty, listening to what mom and dad tell them isn't something that they necessarily want to do. So I think a lot of times at the younger age groups, it's mom and dad saying we're going to the rink, and the kid wants to please the parent and goes to the rink and plays hockey, and they don't push back. And then they get to that 12-year-old age where they know everything and they're, reject adult authority and want to push back and say, I want to stop. So I think it's a lot of things. But I think, the big thing is it has to be fun. And even at the professional levels, even at the NHL, they play small area games. They do things that have to be fun. And I always, when I talk to adults, I say, all right, you play in adult league hockey. How many practices do you have a week? None. Well, isn't it fun? No, you just want to play games too. Why isn't it important for you if it's important to junior or the 10 or 12-year-old, right? They just show up once or twice a week. They play late at night. We appreciate that. But they don't have structured practices. They don't sit the bench. They don't have to skate around cones unless they want to do it in a stick and puck environment where they can control their level of difficulty so that they have success. So, it's amazing that we feel that in order to improve, there has to be a work ethic involved. And I've gotten to the stage of my life. Let's play hockey. Let's have fun. And I think one of the most underappreciated aspects of learning is through unstructured play. It's kids getting out on the ice and being creative and having fun. And we as adults are really, really, really good at sucking up and taking away anything that is creative and anything that is fun. And we make kids color in what we define as the lines that need to be colored in.
It is so interesting that it's the parents that, we talk about like how parents, it's always the parents, always causing trouble, it's always politics and this and that. But actually, it's the parents also controlling what the kids do. Like, okay, you got football, you got math practice, you got English tutorial, you got French. Okay, hockey is on Thursday and Saturday, and then you got rugby. Okay, and everything is like minusculely planned. Like in Hong Kong, it's like this, so busy, and parents are so busy that they don't even have time to monitor what's going on. So they have to just, everything's done for the week. It's planned. Okay, I just let the helper help, bring them to everything, and I just trust that that's what they're doing. But because it's so structured, then the kids, I also think, believe that the things that they do should be structured. Mm-hmm. Like they have to be given the instructions to be able to do it. Like just telling kids to skate around randomly is like they end up skating in circles. like that's how it happened. Today, actually, I was doing just a drill with the kids. Okay, just skate anywhere you want with the puck, anywhere. Just keep your head up and go around. And then they end up skated in circles. And I'm like, why does it have to be order? But that's just how it kind of ended up. I don't know if that was just because the kids were skating in circles or just because it's natural. But I was like, no, skate anywhere, turn anywhere, stop anywhere. And then finally they're like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird, but all right, we'll do it. And I think that was more fun to watch than going around and around. So yeah, it's very interesting how parents do this stuff. I don't know, is it because parents don't know that it's not good, or they know but they don't want uncertainty? Maybe. Like I really don't. I'm not a parent myself, so I don't know.
Well, I think it's a few things. One is obviously it's the fear of being left behind. If the masses are all this direction, we can't take a different path than everybody. But I think also, for people who grew up playing hockey, okay, when they left hockey, that's what they remember hockey as. So if I played through high school and then I went on and quit hockey because I wasn't any good, didn't make the next team, didn't play college, didn't play junior, whatever it may be. I stopped hockey at, say, 17, 18. Well, at 17, 18, the hockey player is really adults, right? They can goal set mentally, physically. They look like an adult. Mentally, they think like adult. And the game is very structured at that level, right? You cycle the puck, you break in, you break out. That's a systematic. That's what hockey is and what they remember it being. And then when they get involved or get their kid involved in hockey, they look out on the ice and they say, that's not hockey. That's not the hockey I left. But what they don't understand is a 6-year-old or a 9-year-old is not an 18-year-old, right? These kids, their attention span, their ability to understand spatial awareness, timing, and all these concepts we have in hockey, those don't develop until later in life. So they can't understand what it is to be a kid, or remember what it is to be a kid at the age of 6 and 7, and think, man, it really stinks to sit here and stand in line and wait my turn to go, right? No kid at the age of 6 can stand still. And if they stand still, they're going to get yelled at for poking the player in line in front of them, because that's what little kids do, right? And we try to say, no, stop. We need you to stand in line. We need you to pay attention. No. That's not how they learn at that age. They learn by doing. They learn by doing. They don't learn by watching. Not until about the age of 10, 11 years old do they visually start saying, okay, show me how to do that. But, when they're young, they'll rip the video controller out of your hand and just start playing. They don't care how you did it. They just want to figure it out on their own. And as adults, we think the shortest distance from point A to point B is to give the kids the solution to the puzzle and let them solve it. Or not solve. We solve it for them instead of letting them be creative and solve it on their own. So I think that's a little bit of it also, is just that parents, they're going through this for the first time. A lot of them, it's their first time they have an 8-year-old kid in the house. There is no playbook for it. And we're in a hurry. We want to provide the best we can for our kids, but we need to stop teaching them it and let them learn on their own.
Makes total sense. I think that is good sound advice. I think that kind of leads into how, you were saying giving the answers to the kids, and like kind of leads into this whole social media thing where, you have kids going through cones and stuff, and the coaches are really just giving them the answer. Like, okay, this is the answer. This is what you have to do. This is how you do it. Skate like this, do it like this, control the puck like this, and this is the answer. And maybe that's why parents love it, because the answer is given to them, and it's like, okay, now they can just instantly apply it, which is not true, but they think that that's what's going to happen. How do you feel about like how social media, maybe some of these social media gurus that are online, or skills coaches that I'm sure there are some that are good and are giving sound advice, and maybe some are just maybe a little bit of showing off or something. I'm not quite sure, but how do you think that that's affected how hockey's developed in, say, even USA or Canada or any other Western country, considering what's going on here in Asia?
Yes, and again, this is a bigger societal issue we have, is this whole social media and being influencers, and this looks great, but this really isn't the life that I'm living, but this is what I'm going to show you on camera. I think the biggest thing, if I can drill down on part of what you said there, is the moment you teach somebody something, you've denied them the opportunity to learn. And what we have become very good in our sport is teaching players what to think versus how to think. And this is where coaches get so frustrated, because we create the perfect scenario in practice. When we do line rush 4, all 3 guys enter the blue line at the exact same time in their lanes in a perfect scenario. We want them to have success, so we create the perfect scenario in practice, and then we get out in a game and there is no perfect scenario. It's chaos. And the whole thing falls apart, because what we taught them was what to think versus how to think. And when that player was not in position, or dropped their stick, or somebody was covering them, when that option is no longer on the checklist, there is no second option. And if we look at when youth hockey has the puck gets batted around like a hot potato. And the reason the puck gets batted around like a hot potato is because when I have the puck on my stick as a kid, and I go behind the net on a breakout, and if that winger isn't on the half boards or at the hash marks of the breakout, my next option should be look for the center, maybe skate and develop the play a little bit. I have options. But most kids go behind that net because in every practice we've taught them, go behind the net and pass to the winger and the half boards. Well, if that winger isn't there, what do? They shoot the puck there. because that's what we've done 15 times. It's not my fault that that kid isn't there. And if I pass the puck there, then that kid's going to get yelled at for not being there. Where if I hold the puck and skate a few strides and let the play develop and I mishandle the puck, now I get yelled at for mishandling the puck, but it was actually started because that player wasn't there. So we see a lot of kids get the puck, look, get nervous, and throw it as far away from them as they can, because the farther the puck is away from me, the less blame I get, right? That's how your kids see hockey, through that cage. So instead of encouraging them to make a decision, and even if the outcome is wrong, we have to recognize the effort over the outcome. You recognize the player wasn't at the half boards, you took a good stride, let the play develop. You don't have to recognize that they coughed the puck up and it cost us a goal, right? Again, effort over outcome would be a lot better in that solution.
Wow, less blame. So basically, kids are playing, like, I'm not saying all kids, but some kids are playing hockey to not have fun. They're playing hockey so that they don't get yelled at for screwing up, which is really a sad situation, because it should be that the kids should be screwing up and the parents shouldn't say a thing. And the coaches should be like, well, you tried that. It wasn't a good decision, but you tried it, and now you know you shouldn't do it. Oh, okay. Or maybe you can do something else later. But yeah, you're right. It doesn't make much sense if kids are playing under such duress and such pressure, not even just within the game, but also from parents who, and coaches that are giving them, so much added stress. I don't know. I mean, it's amazing how they can even play a game. I am like, I never had to go through that. Like, when I played baseball, my parents never watched me. Like, they were too busy. So I was kind of lucky that my coach was super nice and just, was like, okay, well, hey, you missed. Okay, you got struck up. What are you gonna do? Okay, try again next time. Oh, okay. He never yelled at me, so I was very lucky. I think the coaches that I had growing up were super kind, and understood, like, just, it's a game. You'll make mistakes. You'll miss the ball. You won't catch it. Sometimes you do, and so I think that's important. I think moving forward, I think in Hong Kong and usually now the parents are now moving into Hong Kong to train now, because it's a lot cheaper. When it comes to ice time, like in Hong Kong, the ice time is super expensive. So I do understand that aspect of it. So these are some of the challenges we're facing. When ice time is worth, $2,000 an hour, well, maybe going to Shenzhen or going to China somewhere else for, 300 Hong Kong, which is like maybe, no, I don't know how much is 300 Hong Kong divided by 8, was it $40 an hour is better than, 900 or $2,000 for the ice. So yeah, I kind of get that. So social media really not that good. Okay, well, then we can kind of move on to, like, how we were talking about how the kids kind of like play the game, and then they kind of like maybe have too many practices. But then what is a good ratio for, say, a U9 to U11, or maybe even U7? We can say U7 to U9. What are the ratios between, say, practices and games? And then as you get older, does that kind of decrease or increase, and what would those ratios look like?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question that everybody struggles with, and how do we structure the season? And I think that the big thing we need to look at the age, well, I think we should be playing all the time. And, again, going back to the adage that the moment you teach somebody something, you've denied them the opportunity to learn. We don't need to be practicing hockey. We should be playing in our practices. And as coaches, we should be creating an environment where the kids are learning instead of teaching them what they need to learn. And it's really challenging, but, most of the time we should do this. The best way to do a lot of it is through small area games. And, when we show up for practice, we might get through a few quick things together as a team, but then the unstructured learning should be really imposed. And if we're going to be working on puck handling, we're going to do a bunch of games where there is no pattern. Like, a good friend of mine, David Hoff, always talks about, we do a good job of telling the player where to start, what to do throughout the entire process, and finish with a shot every time in practice. And, we got to get rid of some of that. They have to be able to think a little bit on their own, as we've discussed earlier. So when we have practices, especially at the 9 under or 8 and under, 10 and under, 12 and under, it should be small area games focused. There should be very little instruction, and the environment that we put them in should be the teaching tool. It should be helping them understand spatial awareness. It should be able to help them understand what it means to support, how to provide support, how to create 2-on-1s. Because again, in a game, we line everybody up for a face-off, but the second that puck drops, chaos ensues. So we can't go from learning in a very structured and orderly environment and taking that player and putting them in chaos. They don't succeed. So the practice has to emulate the game. It's supposed to be, you play the way you practice. Well, really, you should practice the way you play. And that is removing the instruction and letting the kids go out and compete at a high level and do and learn and fail. And we got to encourage an environment where we celebrate failure, where it's okay to make mistakes. That's part of the game. Fail harder is a slogan that a lot of us have used the past few years after a great video that somebody had put out. But we got to get it so that these kids, A, when they're on the ice, they're exhausted. B, they're thinking and making decisions on their own. And C, they're learning from their mistakes. And this is very, very hard to do because that's not why the parents are paying you. Right? I don't want to say you're hands off. I don't want to say you're laissez-faire. I want to say you're letting them learn. But I don't, as a parent, I'm not paying for that. I want the structure, I want the organization, and I want the shortest distance from point A to point B. But again, none of that is really transferable to the game environment. So now as a parent, I sit in the stands and I watch the coach being on the ice with my kid for an hour, and the kid's going crazy and running around and having fun. Well, geez, we shouldn't have fun at practice. Come on, this is practice, right? It's work. No. Let them play. Let them develop. Be patient. This is a game. Again, we don't do it as adults. We don't go out on the ice in an adult league and practice all the time. We don't have structure, anything. We just go have fun. Let the kids do that. And it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think after 35 years of coaching and coaching development, sometimes I really wonder if we got back to the old playground environment and kids went out on the ice without any adults and did an entire season by themselves. It might not look pretty, but I'm wondering if they wouldn't have more success and more fun without us involved than with us involved. And it's kind of a sad statement to make, I know, as a coaching person, but again, we got to take the game and put it back in the hands of the players and let them do and succeed and have fun. There's nothing worse than I hate walking into a locker room or a rink and a coach saying to a kid, never pass the puck in front of the net, never do this, never do that, and it's like, don't do this, don't do that. Now I'm going out on the ice and I got all these things I'm not supposed to do. I'm make that mistake. I'm afraid to go back to the bench because the coach is going to tell me what I did wrong instead of pulling me to the side and say, hey, what did you see there? Why did you choose that pass? I'm on the bench. I can see everything. I know as a player, you can only what was that decision? What did you learn from that decision? All right. You're better than that. Let's go out there and let's correct that. Let's go, and be encouraging and be more of a cheerleader, but just encouraging the fact that no hockey player has ever stepped out on the ice for an entire game and played a flawless game. The game is chaos and mistakes all over. Okay. It's the team who can capitalize on the other team's mistakes that is the one that's most likely to win. So I don't know if I got to the end of that question the way you wanted me to, but that's kind of how we got there.
Well, I think the ratio is that we should get back to a space where kids can learn on their own, and it doesn't matter, like maybe less structured practices, but more free practices. And I think that that is something that we're definitely missing. And I remember there was some research had been done about like metropolitan city sports and also like rural athletic sports, and how there are more rural athletic, like professional sport people than there are from metropolitan areas. But that's because they structure everything. They want a lot of structure, and there's too much chaos. Like if you live in New York City, there's a lot of chaos. So every parent wants their kids to be structured. I think in Hong Kong it's very similar. We have a lot of structure here, and I look back to, and I don't know if you're very familiar to with Chinese gymnasts and how they train them, and how they pluck them out of their village and say, do you want to train? Because you have the right body type, you could do this. And then they take them and they train them for X amount of years, and then they perform for one Olympic, just once or maybe twice if they're really good, and then that's it. And they overtrain them until like 14, 15, 16, and then it's over. Like they can't train anymore because maybe they just can't go on. It's done. They've squeezed everything out already, and there's none left. So I think that we here sports in Hong Kong, we really have to develop a better sports culture, which kind of leads me to like how, okay, when we talk to parents, they really don't like it when I say stuff like this. Like we talk about this stuff, they're like, no, but I mean, we should be, they should have a line, and they should line up, and they should do the drill one by one. And it's like, okay, well, if that's what you want, but if that's what you want, then they're doing 45. If they're doing an hour and a half, like today, I was explaining to another coach, and he's a good coach. He's and I saw what was going on the other end, and there was a lineup, and he was doing one-on-one battles, but it was like one-on-one battle on 1/3 ice. And nothing against him. He's a good kid, and he coaches the kids, and he's kind of like, this is the knowledge he's received from the other coaches. And the other 4 kids are just standing there waiting. I was like, why don't you just run the battle, all 6 of them? Because you could run at the same time. They're all battling on the wall. There's a whole 1/3 ice for you for 6 kids. You could do a battle there and a battle on the corner, another battle in the corner, and now they're all moving. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. All right, well, we do that. And so I think like a lot of the stuff that we're doing now in Hong Kong, hopefully we can push a little bit. I think the IIHF is now really stepping in a little bit more in Asia. They're trying to really push the, learn to play, and a little bit more of the small area game concepts, and convincing parents that this is the way to go. And hopefully the culture changes a little bit. But then it does kind of lead me to the, in the past, we've talked about this, the windows of trainability, because we really have trouble with that here in Hong Kong. I think we kind of overtrain, like even at U9, U7, a lot of parents are like expecting their kids to work miracles. Like when they get on the ice, they should, well, how come he's not skating as fast as player B? That's like, player B is 1 year older than your child. You shouldn't expect them to be able to do so. But we have high expectations from parents. And as you mentioned, like we pay money for structure. We pay money for this. If you're not giving us this, then I'll go to club B or club C that do this. And it's tough. It's tough. So hopefully we can change that. But then the windows of trainability is something that I want to push, so that we can train the kids at the right time for certain things, and really push the culture and the sport to a higher level. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that, as this is a podcast rather than the talk that we have with parents, and this would be something that would be some things that we would definitely quote. I would really like you to go into this a little bit more, if you could.
Oh, absolutely. So windows trainability, I think the biggest misconception we have with building hockey players is we shouldn't be building hockey players. We should be building athletes. And this is kind of what we discussed earlier, was the fact that, a lot of other activities, or all other activities off the ice, are also transferable to hockey. And that it's out, as you have mentioned, we are doing way too much just hockey and sports specific training. And and the parents, they feel they have a license to do this because their child wants to be on the ice 8 to 10 times a week. That's what they want. And I tell them all the time, they also want to eat ice cream for breakfast, and you don't allow them to do that. You're the adult. We need to keep it fun. We need them to have a little bit of an edge, be a little anxiety to get to the rink, because it's been a few days since they've been there. So we want to limit their time on the ice and do other activities and other sports to do it. So the windows of trainability, as you pulled up here, this is the science behind the child's optimal opportunity to learn certain skills and speed, and their ability to really maximize what they do in sports. It's just not hockey. So, if we look there, right in the middle, you see the age line there. It starts at 5 and goes up to 20. And again, we've talked about, and I know you talked quite a bit with Christian about, hockey's a late development sport. It is not something that we know who the best players are. For instance, in the NHL, they draft at the age of 18. And every year, 30% of the NHL is represented by undrafted hockey players. So even at the age of 18, with all the millions of dollars spent on drafting amateur players, the NHL's only, still has a 30% failure rate on this, because the player you are at 18 is not the player you're going to be at 22 and 26. So we've lost our patience with everything. We're in a society with technology, with social media. Everything's an instant world. We want our kids to be instantly successful and the best player on the team. And it's actually one of the things that will actually hurt your players' development if they are the best player by the age of 12 or 13. It's actually probably the worst thing that could happen to your player's career, is to be the best player at 12 or 13. So, at the younger ages, from 8, 9 under, we're really trying to develop suppleness and speed. All right. Speed is very important. And it's really the ages between 6 and 9 that we need to get kids going as fast as they can and encourage them to go faster. All right. The proper work to rest ratio doesn't exist for these kids. They never get tired. They go, 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 because their body is telling them, this is your opportunity to learn to go fast. So go fast. This is when, as a coach, we say, go half speed. They can't go half speed. They maybe go a stride and a half, right? Everything to a kid under the age of 8 and 9 is full speed all the time. And as a coach, you shouldn't be trying to slow them down and teaching them. You should be actually encouraging them to go faster, because that's all going to get programmed in their brain and in their body. And that speed is going to come back to them later in life. But this is their ability to learn to go fast. Again, you can't teach somebody speed, but it can be learned. And we need to allow them to learn that to go fast. So, and then once they get out of that ABCs, abilities, balance, and coordination into the speed window, then they move on. Most of them, depending on their age group, usually about 9 or so, they move on to skill development. And this is fine-tuned skills. This is a lot of puck handling and things of that nature, not just big muscle things. So we can take a 16-year-old kid who's never played hockey, and we can take a 16-year-old kid who's played hockey for 10 years, and we can put them on the goal line at the start of the season and say, I want you to go from goal line to goal line and back. And what will happen is at the start of the season, that kid who's played for 10 years will smoke the kid who's just started. But by the end of the season, if we did that same exercise, that gap would close. And the reason for that is skating is a big muscle activity. So, everything's transferable to that. That kid will show greater signs of improvement than that kid who's played for 10 years. But if we put a puck in their hand and do the same exercise, that is what will slow them down, because at the age of 9 to 13, 9 to 14, that's the fine-tuned skills. This is, again, where if you want to improve puck handling, get your kid into throwing darts, playing ping pong, fly fishing, all that is transferable to puck handling. If you want to work on shooting, tennis, where they open up their hips and lead with their hips, baseball is another activity. Those are things that we should be including in our kids' activities instead of just going to the ice rink non-stop. So a lot of transferable activities out there go into the skill development. And we know, as we mentioned earlier, 60% of the kids quit hockey by the age of 12. And when that happens, they leave the game. A lot of them come back later in life, usually when they start a family and they have, kids. They're going to get back involved in hockey. They take their kid. They remember how much fun they had as a kid. Then they start playing adult league. And when they come back, it'll be a little rusty, but you can look out on the ice and see who learned the game before the age of 12 and who learned after the age of 12 in hockey by just looking at puck handling. Because even though they didn't do it for 20 years, say, it's been programmed in their brain. They've learned it as a kid, and when they come back to the sport, their ability to puck handle will become a lot easier than those who have never learned at that age. And I'm not saying they can't learn to handle the puck. It just won't look natural. It won't look fluid. It'll look very forced and very hard as they try to handle that puck there. So, skill development, that's when we should be, if your kid is 9 to 13, 9 to 14, we should be just cramming skills down their throat. Again, at that age, spatial awareness, support, a lot of the tactics and systems, especially the systems, we shouldn't be focusing on that age. Okay. We want to make the player better. Let's make the player better. The whole team doesn't move on. The whole team doesn't make a pro contract. It is the individual. So let's make the individual better. And if you want to make your team 15% better, I can't remember, somebody once said, if you want to make your team 15% better, all you got to do is make every guy on your team 1% better. Right? It's a lot easier and a lot faster to focus on the individual, and the rising tide lifts all ships. When your worst players improve, then everybody's going to get better. So cram skills down their throat again, but not necessarily always in a structured environment. Create games and activities using skill as the focus, but let the kids learn to do it and do it well. And then after that, now they're in the puberty age. Now they're growing. They're starting to look adults. They're starting to look, physically like adults. Emotionally, they can have long-term goals. They understand spatial awareness. They understand long-term steps. It's not always step A, step A, step A, step A. They understand that step A will lead to step B to step C, and they can see how the whole picture comes together. And I guess the example with that is as a winger, if I'm 10, 11, 12 years old, I understand my job is to get to the half boards on a breakout, receive the pass from the defenseman, and then turn and make the pass to the center. I understand my part of the equation. But now when I get to be 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, I understand what my involvement is in the entire play. I understand if somebody falls down on a breakout, how I can substitute to fill into their role and communicate and have people figure out how to fill for me. So, they can see the entire picture. But really at that age, now we can start looking at structuring the game a little bit more because they understand it conceptually, but also we're looking at a window called speed tude. And a lot of that is acceleration. And a lot of this is also a window for conditioning, right? This is when, again, they become adults where we got to have a 1-to-3 work to rest ratio, almost like we do in a game, where an 8-year-old has a 0 work rest ratio, right? They go, 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 go. They're the Energizer Bunny. So now kids get tired. And, when we look at that speed window 2 of acceleration, it's kind of interesting that it matches up with conditioning, because that's when, as coaches, we should be doing a lot of starts and stops and drills. Okay. Most hockey players understand that a lot of stopping as you get older gets tougher to get started, right? And that's because we're driving up conditioning, but we're also learning to accelerate quicker. So that speed 2 window isn't necessarily speed overall. It's more the acceleration. So, this is a lot of the science of development. This is a lot of looking at when their windows of trainabilities are primed to learn those items. However, similar to you, when we introduce this long-term athlete development with people in USA Hockey, everybody understands the science. And we got a lot of people, every time I talked about this, a lot of people would look at me right in the eye and say, I agree with you 100%. That is so true for everybody else's kid. All right. Because everybody feels their kid's the one exception to this. And it's, it's a little frustrating because they're hearing you, they're understanding what you're saying. However, they just think, my kid's a little bit better than this. And, that's a little bit of the pushback and the challenge that we have faced with this. But, the programs who do it and the people that do it, and, people like yourself who are focused on developing a player, and then that player gets an offer to go skate for a better team, and they pick up and they run and they jump to that team. And I want to say to those people all the time, wait a second. This school, this club you were with, developed your player so good that somebody else wants them. Why don't you ask them? Why didn't they develop their players so they don't need you? Right? But it's the team concept, it's the win concept, it's the trophy concept of being on a first place team. And, being on a first place team doesn't make your player better, unless your player is number 1 on that team, right? It's good to be a big fish in a small pond. It's good to be on the ice during the power play, during special teams, during end of period, goalie pulled situations. There's not a kid in this world who would rather be sitting on a bench, on a better team, on a championship team, versus being on a losing team and playing every shift, right? Every kid in the world wants to play hockey. So find the right place where your kids are going to be developed. Be patient with the process. And if you see improvement and a club wants your kid from somewhere else, chances are stay with your club, because they didn't do a good job developing their players and they have to steal and cherry pick from everybody else. And it might be a better club and they might have better championships, or maybe they just have cooler colors. But I got to tell you, your logo, Kung Pao Kings, I absolutely love the logo, and that's the team that I would choose along with your
Well, thanks so much. Thank you for your kind comments. Yeah, the logo does get a lot of positive reactions. I, the last part of what you just said, the whole last minute or two about how kids like it. We get a lot of and I never say no. I always tell them, hey, it's good, you get to play games. But if the China teams are that good, then why do you have to go play for them? Why do they need you to play for them?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but they have enough play. They have some players, but then why do they still need 5 more? Like, if they have 5 really good ones, then where are the other 5? Why do they need you to fill the roster? That's okay. You want the opportunity to play. okay, go play. Like, I'm not going to stop you. Like, I'm not
Yep.
I'm not going to stop you. I'm not some guy I'm not a dictator. I'm not a totalitarian dictator of hockey. Okay. You come train with us. We have fun. You enjoy, you grow, you develop. And if you want to go play somewhere else, I'm actually very supportive of that, because I think parents who are happy, they think they're on the right path. That's okay. Let them be. We continue to educate, continue to go through through the process of having podcasts, and hope parents listen and spread the word. And this is a process. It's a long process, I think, in Hong Kong. Hockey is a developing new sport. I'm also involved in curling, and curling is also a very small developing sport here in Hong Kong, in terms of ice sports, and short track and long track too. Speed skating. I don't do that, but it's also a developing sport. All these ice sports are very small, so it doesn't help when it's an uphill battle. It definitely is. So I think we've gone through everything. I don't know if there's any other things that are there any other things that you want to go over, or if there's any other special topics that you think that we should touch upon? If not, it's okay. We can end it here. And actually, we've got a lot of things that we've gone through today.
No, I just appreciate the time, and like you, always just love talking hockey and trying to figure out how we can do it better. By no means is anything I've said gospel. Like I said from the beginning, I continue to screw this up the best I can and learn from my failures, hopefully, and just like our hockey players. But just really, I mentioned to you earlier, I applaud you for trying to shift the paradigm there, and be a leader in our sport instead of just bashing what parents want and things like that. The key is educating. They only know what they know, and the key is just like we got done talking about the parents, with you. Be patient. You'll get there. And if you connect with one or two of them, then, that's better than what we started the day with. So, just be patient. The game's supposed to be fun. And when we walk into ice rinks, sometimes I wonder who's having fun out there, right? And
Yeah, that is true. That is very true. Thank you very much again, Ty. I really appreciate your time, and I will be posting this probably as soon as I can. There's a couple of editing things that I'll have to do, but definitely I want to thank you once again for joining us, the Compound Kings podcast. And thank you really from the bottom of my heart, Mr. Ty Newberry, for joining us this time around. And hopefully we'll have you back again and discuss other more interesting topics and again, hopefully. Thank you so much, and see you next time.